What if I told you the Titanic didn't just carry passengers? What if it was carrying something cursed? Something so dark, so dangerous, that some people believe it pulled that ship straight to the bottom of the ocean? Stay with me, because what I'm about to share with you is one of the most fascinating, most debated mysteries in history, and most people have never heard the full story. Welcome back, everyone. If you're new here, I'm so glad you found this channel. We dig into history's greatest mysteries, forgotten stories, and the moments that changed everything. And today, we're going on a voyage to the night of April 14th, 1912, to the icy waters of the North Atlantic, and to a diamond, a cursed diamond that may or may not have been sitting in the belly of the most famous ship ever built. Let's get into it. Now, I know most of you know the basics of the Titanic, but let's make sure we're all on the same page, because the details matter here. The RMS Titanic set sail on April 10th, 1912, from Southampton, England. It was the largest ship in the world at that time, 882 feet long, over 46,000 tons. People called it unsinkable. That word alone should give you chills knowing what comes next. On board, around 2,224 people, passengers from all walks of life. First-class passengers included some of the wealthiest people on the planet. These weren't ordinary travelers. They carried jewels, cash, priceless artworks, and secrets. 4 days into the journey, at 11:40 p.m., the Titanic struck an iceberg. By 2:20 a.m. on April 15th, the ship was gone. Over 2,500 people lost their lives. It remains one of the deadliest peacetime maritime disasters in history. But here's what the history books don't always ask. What was on that ship that we've never fully accounted for? Now, let's talk about the diamond at the center of this legend. The story goes like this. A cursed gem, sometimes called the Hope Diamond, or a similar stone linked to it, was secretly being transported on the Titanic. And its curse, a curse dating back centuries, is what doomed the ship. Here's where it gets really interesting. The Hope Diamond, if you don't know, is one of the most famous gemstones in the world. It's a deep, rare blue diamond, 45.52 carats, and it currently sits in the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, D.C. But its history? Dark. The diamond is believed to have been mined in India in the 1600s, possibly from the Kolar mine in the region of Golconda. According to legend, it was stolen from the eye of a sacred statue of the Hindu goddess Sita, and that is supposedly where the curse began. Everyone who owned it, or so the legend says, suffered tragedy. King Louis XIV of France owned it. He died of smallpox. His grandson, Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette, were guillotined during the French Revolution. The diamond passed through many hands. Misfortune followed each one. Now, did the Hope Diamond sink with the Titanic? Let's be completely honest with you here because I respect your intelligence. No, it did not. The Hope Diamond was owned in 1912 by Evelyn Walsh McLean, an American socialite. She bought it in 1911 and wore it for decades after the Titanic sank. She died in 1947, and while her life had its share of tragedy, she held on to that diamond for over 30 years. So where did this Titanic connection come from? This is the part that most videos skip, and it's fascinating. The connection between the Hope Diamond and the Titanic appears to have largely originated from a newspaper story, and possibly from the imagination of people looking for an explanation for such an unimaginable tragedy. When something this catastrophic happens, humans search for meaning. We look for a reason. And a cursed diamond? That's a perfect story. But here's what is true and documented. The Titanic did carry incredible wealth. Passenger inventories and survivor accounts confirm that first-class cabins contained jewelry worth millions of dollars in today's money. Much of it was lost forever. One documented and heartbreaking story. Lady Duff Gordon, a famous fashion designer, survived, but she carried jewels on board that were worth a fortune. Others weren't so lucky. And then there's the story of Molly Brown, or Margaret Brown, who actually survived the Titanic and became a legend for helping others into lifeboats. She was known for her incredible jewelry collection. Now, here's a separate legend that blends into this story. Some versions say it wasn't the Hope Diamond at all, but a mummy case from Egypt, allegedly carrying a cursed artifact, that was in the Titanic's cargo hold. This story claims the mummy case belonged to a priestess of Amenra from around 1050 BC, and that anyone who disturbed it was cursed. The story spread widely in newspapers after the disaster. And again, historians have investigated this. There is no credible evidence a mummy case was on the Titanic. The story appears to be a legend that grew in the aftermath of the disaster. But why do these legends feel so real? That's actually the most interesting question of all. Think about it this way. It's 1912, the most technologically advanced ship ever. Built, designed by experts, declared unsinkable, sinks on its very first voyage. Over 2,500 people die. How do you explain that? How does your brain process something so enormous, so sudden, so cruel? For many people, chance isn't enough. The idea that it was just bad luck, an iceberg, poor visibility, a ship going too fast, feels hollow against the scale of the tragedy. A curse gives it meaning. A cursed diamond, a disturbed ancient mummy, a supernatural force. These stories give the disaster a narrative. A beginning, a cause, a reason. Psychologists call this apophenia, the human tendency to find patterns and meaning in unconnected events. It's not weakness. It's actually one of the most deeply human things about us. And the story of the Titanic and a cursed diamond taps directly into that instinct. So let's bring it all together. Here's what we actually know. The Titanic sank on April 15th, 1912. That's fact. The Hope Diamond existed and has a documented history of ownership. Fact. The Hope Diamond was not on the Titanic. Fact. The mummy curse story has no documented evidence. Legend. The Titanic carried enormous wealth that was lost forever. Fact. Human beings are wired to find meaning in tragedy. Absolutely fact. The legend of the cursed diamond grew because we needed it to exist. Because a story that big, a loss that devastating, deserved more than an iceberg. And honestly, I think that's what makes this legend so beautiful, even if it isn't true. It shows us how people cope, how communities process grief, how a story can become more powerful than facts because it carries emotion. So, do you believe in the curse? Let me know in the comments. I genuinely love reading what you think. This community has some of the most thoughtful people on YouTube, and these are exactly the kinds of conversations I live for. If you learned something today, or if this made you think differently about the Titanic story, hit that like button. It genuinely helps this channel reach more people who love history just as much as we do. And if you're new, subscribe. We do this every week. Real stories, real history, told the way it deserves to be told. I'll see you in the next one.